Good afternoon, everyone. It is July, or I suppose evening. It is July 26, 2023. We are 5 hours into the Globex Open, and we are trending up quite nicely, going right around the weekly, or sorry, the high of the year, this week's high, the FOMC high from today. Now, what we had today was a move down. I'd mentioned that the last place I'd want to be long is about the mid 80s. That's where we were before FOMC. We came down to, I think, about 82 or so. Caught a bid, ramped up, couldn't break that 90 to 95 area that's been such critical resistance for about a week, kind of this area here. Uh, Eventually, during the FOMC, we ramped up to what was it? We ramped up to the prior week's high, and then we just kind of churned in the day's range. We ended up closing around 45.95, so kind of the high of that balance high that I was looking at. So pretty bullish close, if you ask me. And now we're nicely moving on upwards. Now, end of month, in my opinion, started today, given that it is Wednesday, and that makes T plus two effective on the Friday, right? So Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. So those are the 3 days I would consider to be end of month. Uh, so in general, I would not want to be short at end of month. This thing ramps way too hard, way too frequently at end of month, so I will not be touching it on the short side. Now, let's get into the Nasdaq for a quick second. What did we have here? Well, once again, Nasdaq just being weak as heck. Unsurprisingly, it was in the morning before FOMC. It was unable to reclaim kind of the settlement highs and like yesterday's liquidation low from that whatever it was, Microsoft and Google earnings, I think. Instead, ended up liquidating it to last week's low. Uh, Ended up holding it during FOMC as well, and it was nice. It ended up putting in a high right above, I think, right around where was that? Right below that Tuesday high of the day, kind of near that Friday high of the day. So this 710 to 740 area. So kind of what I'm looking at is kind of this here. Looking at this is kind of a zone. Yeah, something like that is what I'm looking at mostly. Is kind of the 710 to 740 area is kind of the critical area, and you regain that, and you likely end up getting some sort of trend up scenario where you've had some accumulation or balance or whatever you want to call it below here. And now we're moving on upwards. So uh, important to note as well that we did have the monthly point of control shift up. That's over here around 45.80ish. So here's my conundrum. The NQ has been very weak for about a week or so. It started with this Wednesday session, or sorry, not even started, but this is when I really started to notice it. Was when this Wednesday session couldn't really take out Tuesday's highs. It kind of was jammed there the entire session. I think the next day it was just selling off, and then Friday it actually broke last week's low or something, or sorry, Monday it broke last week's low, uh, and it spent the entire day below the open, whereas ES was spending the day above the open. On that prior Wednesday, ES was spending the entire day above prior day's high. Today, once again, falling all the way down to last week's low, whereas ES was pretty damn bid. So, in general, to me, until the Nasdaq shows evidence of catching up with ES, for lack of a better term, ES is pushing the high of the year right as we speak. It's about 5 points off or so, three points, 5 points, whatever. The Nasdaq is, what is that? 350? Yeah, 350 points off. It's 2.25% off. Yes, the Nasdaq can do explosive moves, and maybe tomorrow we get that trend up explosive move. But I'm just uninterested largely in playing this long. Uh, I think we raised a quarter basis point for the FOMC news. Tomorrow we've got GDP quarter over quarter. Maybe it negates this trend up that's occurring. And then we have pending home sales as well. Friday will not be trading, but we've got PCE and the University of Michigan's consumer sentiment. Uh, so the conundrum I have going into tomorrow is I do not want to be short at end of month. So that rules out me playing the NASDAQ because the NASDAQ to me currently is the short ticker. It is the ticker, the vehicle that I want to be trading if I'm going to use the short side. It's not too complicated. It's trading 2.25% off the high of the year. The ES is trading at pretty much the high of the year. So that only leaves me logically with trading ES and to the long side exclusively. Uh, I'm not a trend trader, so there's a high probability that I'm going to be sitting out tomorrow, and then Friday will not be here. Uh, so with all that said, how am I looking at the Ned key? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about in a scenario if I were to take longs, how would I be taking longs? Well, if we get an aggressive trend up, it's that same, 7 whatever, this sort of area. It's this kind of thing. It'd be somewhere around here would be the most aggressive long I'd want to take. Above that, you're flirting with last week's point of control, last week's VWAP close, last week's halfback, all those sorts of things. There's a gap up going to 911-ish, so maybe we go and fill that. I don't know, but I think you start to face some resistance. You're getting long at the highs. It's not my sort of trade. It's only if we are aggressively trending up would I want to be long in that 700-ish area, 700 to 740, this sort of zone here. Something like this. Otherwise, what I'd be looking for, and these are all dependent, contingent upon ES breaking its overnight high and giving me some sort of long scenario, is getting long 684s, 667s, so 667 being roughly Tuesday's close. 684s have just been a nice level to play. You can see them working all the way across here on this 30-minute chart. Below there, 635s. Uh, that also being just kind of a level that I'm interested in. Also working really nicely here. You can see a small offer, bids, offers, got kind of mucked around, but here, even during this liquidation in Globex, you can see it giving bids and then offers, and then FOMC is kind of hard to get into. Below there, last spot I'd want to be long, 587s, settlement lows, right around the weekly open. You got the point of control there, the VWAP close there from today's sessions. Below there, and I cannot help but believe you are dealing with a liquidation scenario. I think this thing does not hold last week's low like it did once again today. It did it on Monday. We went below to last week's -2 standard deviation, reclaimed last week's low, and then moved up. Today, similar, I think. Last week's low, 522s, managed to hold it pretty well. I don't see that holding for a third time. S&Ps. Sorry, this video is long. S&Ps. Well, I'm only interested in the long side. 60, 65, doubt those will trade. 86 is probably the last place I'd want to be long. Not too different from today. Let me just make sure that is correct and I did not edit this a little bit. 80, sorry, 80 and a half is where I should have. There we go. That's pretty much the last spot I want to be long. Below there, and I'm just not very interested in it. Get willing to get long at 80. That's roughly around settlement lows. It's around value area low from today. It's been a really nice level for the past numerous days. Don't know why that's there. Uh, Above there, 86 quarter. I wouldn't be opposed to taking long. I'm going to get rid of it. Uh, Above, we're looking at 94s, and that is if the overnight high is broken or we're unable to take out this overnight low. Above there, willing to take 4608 long, an aggressive trend trade, breakout trade, and that is if the overnight high is broken. So overall, I think I'm unlikely to get a trade in tomorrow. I'm simply not going to be playing the short side, and ES is my only ticker to play long. And I'm not really a breakout trader, so I don't really see a move unless I'm getting long about 94s or 80s. Anyway, hope that makes sense. Good God, a 10-minute video for you guys. Have a great night. Trade safe. Be careful with the GDP pre-market and then any adjustments to this thing. I think the BOJ also giving us some news overnight. Have a great night. Updates to this pre-market.